It's Hillbillies in the Bush, and today I'd like to talk to you about the History Channel's Alone series they got going on. Give you some of my thoughts. First of all, I'd like to say, it's awful easy sitting on the couch or sitting in your easy chair eating potato chips to knock or say I'd do this or I'd do that. And it is awful easy, and in fact I'm sure that the guys that done the show there will probably watch their own clips and say, wow, I should have done this or I should have done that. They would have seen some things that they would have probably liked to have done. I'm sure there's things on there that they weren't allowed to show. There's probably restrictions that they had that we don't know about. For instance, you do know there's bear and mountain lion and stuff like that on the island. They could have been under the restriction. They weren't allowed to kill those for food, which would have been a big game to go after, but a couple of guys that had bow and arrows would have been, they were proficient enough with those bow and arrows. It was doable, A lot of things that you see on there, like for instance, the guy that lost his ferro rod, devastating without a doubt. In a wet environment like that, damp, everything's damp. Most of you guys that watch my channel know that when it's raining, pouring down rain, or just after a rain, or you get a soaked forest like they had, very difficult to get a fire going with a fire steel. Even primitive means, bow drill or hand drill. One of the things I did see though, he had a fire going. He did lose his fire steel, which I'm sure, as you've seen, it upset him greatly, as it would anybody. He did have a fire going, so he could in fact try out a bow drill or a drill and a fireboard that he would need to build a bow drill fire. But there again, he's got a long road to hoe. There's no doubt about it. Trying to keep a fire going 24/7 in a wet environment like that, it's doable, but you pretty much have to sit there and tend it all the time, or find funky wood, stuff like that. The odds were stacked against him. That's just all there was to it. And there again, he had a phone to where it was awful easy to push the help me button or get me out of here button, and there it is. One of the guys, the youngest guy, Scott, I believe his name was, thoroughly impressed me. The odds after reading his bios definitely stacked against him with a new baby. There was just, in my opinion, I knew, being a father, that there's no way he's going to be out there in the bush with his wife delivering their first child. So he knew he had a set window. He knew that eventually, if it went past that window, he was done. He could probably use that money a lot. I'm sure all of them needed the money, or they wouldn't have been on there. Alan, the guy that won, I read his bios, and I knew that he had the proper mental set. Survival in that situation is a lot of psychological. 90%, probably 80%, 90% psychological. You gotta have the will to be there and do what it takes. All of them thought they had the will to do what it takes, and the animals got the better of a few of them right off the bat. There's a couple of guys I call Craven Bushcraft. I've been subbed to him for a while. Mitch at Native Survival, I've watched his channel for several years. Mitch, I knew, had the proper mental aspect of it, very meticulous. Had a few things go wrong with him that stacked the odds against him. And as you've seen with some of the things with his mother, all that weighs on your mind when you're out there in the bush and you got no one to talk to. We don't know what kind of contact they may or may not have had with the film crew or with their base crew or whatever it might be. But yeah, you can say that you should have done this, you should have done that, or you could have, or there's all kinds of options that they could have had, but it's totally different when you're out there on your own. Those big animals, I'm sure, like around here, about the biggest thing we've got here in southeastern Ohio would be the coyotes. Coyotes and bobcats, which aren't very big, and they're very elusive and very skittish. One of the, been my experience that from from the camping I've done and stuff, that generally if you set up in an area, the animals will migrate out of the area. I don't know if they just know that it's man or it's an instinctive thing. The bear and the mountain lion, might be some territorial issues there. Hollering, hey bear, or get out of here bear, with a 200 or 300 pound black bear standing there not too far from you, definitely would get you unnerved, without a doubt. And one of the things I noticed that I didn't watch every episode, but I didn't see any ring of spears around any of their camps to where, they've got fortress built to where, if a bear comes in, he's at least going to have to get through some pointy sticks. There's plenty of trees and stuff there. I'm sure they could have made something, of course. Going up against a bear with a pointy stick takes a lot of guts. There's no doubt about it. And there again, they had a button that they could push on their phone to say, come and get me out of here. I don't want to be with these animals. But if you'll notice, as time went on, you've heard and seen less of the animals, the big animals. Like I say, I'm sure they migrated out of the area or stayed away because it's just one of them things I've noticed happens in my neck of the woods anyway. They're curious for a little while, and then they realize that if you don't get attacked, of course, there's always that chance. One of the things I've seen the guys, I didn't see any kind of a trap line set up. The youngest guy, like I said, he really impressed me. He at least set up a couple deadfalls, got a couple mice. All of them knew that you had to have a food source. They were depending or banking on those fish, and like again, we didn't see all the footage that was taken. There could have been a lot that got cut out. I'm sure there was a lot cut out, more likely. They may have not have been allowed to show a lot of stuff. But all those guys knew that they had to have a trap line of some sort set up. I'm sure they all knew that. All of them's got great skills just to get the fire going in that environment. They at least had good skills. Like I say, it's easy to sit back and look at things and say, yeah, I would have done this or I would have done that, but I wasn't there. The loneliness of it, definitely would play on you, and knowing you have family members. I thought it was real cool how the one guy had a cap that he put eyeballs on it and turned it around so that the big cats wouldn't attack him. They would want to circle around, attack him from the back. I thought that was a pretty slick idea. And while we're on that subject, the kit items that they took pretty much were all the same. But I did notice one guy stood out more than the rest of them. And probably, or my theory or my thoughts of this was, the guys thought they were backpacking. They had the mindset of pack light, or as light as I can still carry and not kill myself. And he didn't pack that way, it seemed like. His saw was like a 4-foot cross-cut, saw, massive axe. I believe he understood that once you're there and you're dropped off and you move around a little bit and get a location, they were probably not allowed to move very far because they were only a couple mile away from each other, 2 or 3 mile away from each other, the closest ones. You could possibly holler, and surely they've seen each other's fires at that distance, or the smoke anyway. You scream loud enough, and I'm sure a couple mile away you can be heard unless it's through a dense forest. But he had the mindset of, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to be here. I'm not like I have to pack my kit back up and truck 10 miles away, And while, so he used good thoughts on bringing a big saw, which, he was looking at it like, I'm going to have to homestead this place. A big axe. Very impressed with the canoe he made. I was really impressed with the coracle that Mitch made. Kudos to you, Mitch, on that. That was pretty simple, ingenious, got the job done. Didn't require a lot of manpower, or calories expended. Awesome job. Like I say, there's all kinds of things you can say that they should have done, or could have done, or would have done, and I'm sure they would have done a lot of difference if they had to do over a lot of different things. But they all of them had to deal with family members or friends that they missed, and A lot of stuff weighs on you when you've been out there that long. I've never been out 30 or 40 days like that, and in a survival situation like that, like I say, they always had a call button. So it was a survival type. I look at survival in probably different ways of most people. What we do and play around on cameras, bushcrafting or woodcrafting or whatever you want to call it. But a survival situation is when you're there, there's no chance of help. Or if there is, it's way out and you have to self-rescue. They had no means of self-rescue, so they were as close to a true survival situation as you could get, because number one, they were on an island. They were stuck. They weren't allowed to move or self-rescue, so the button that they had to push was their only out. I didn't see anybody get seriously hurt, and when you're talking the knives that they had, the axes and saws that they had, great possibility for some serious injuries. I did see some guys probably had cuts and scrapes on their hands, which is going to happen. It's just going to happen. There ain't no getting around that. But thankfully, nobody was seriously hurt that I seen. A couple guys got sick from drinking. My thoughts on that was from drinking not purified water. You can't trust any streams or moss or any stuff like that. If you've got a pot to boil water in, you better be boiling that water. Yeah, it'll taste like crap. So even the nastiest water, if you boil it, it might make it safe to drink, but it ain't going to do nothing for the flavor. But yeah, there was a lot of things I seen on there that, that me and my boys talked about, and I kind of made it a quiz with them as to, what could they have done a little different here to help them out, just to kind of get my boys thinking along the lines of things, Like I say, those guys, I'm sure, would do a lot of things differently. But I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. It ain't worth nothing, but just some thoughts on it, Like I say, kudos to all the guys, being out there, facing that bear and lion and their mountain lion and stuff, and just the loneliness of it and the hard work that they went through. They all deserve kudos on that. But like I say, sitting back, you can nitpick all kinds of stuff on it, but it was good. It was good information. They put out a lot of stuff there. Some of the stuff that I hadn't seen before, like that coracle that Mitch made, super simple. I've seen coracles made and different things, but the way he just laid the tarp down, piled the brush on it, folded it up, and it don't get no simpler than that. I don't know how you could have got any more simpler than that. Just truck stuff back and forth. Yeah, he run the risk of puncturing his tarp, but I'm sure he took great care in keeping that tarp as puncture-free or hole-free as he could have. But anyway, like I say, these guys deserve a great pat on the back, all of them. They tested their limits, tested their skill sets, and I'm sure they're still testing them now after they're off camera. But just wanted to throw that out there. I know I've seen some guys on YouTube put their 2 cents out there, and they had a lot of good points. And basically, some of it was what I'm saying. You're not there, so you don't know what they went through, other than your own experiences when you were alone, or you've been out for a few days by yourself, or even by yourself. That's really tough. Having a few people with you or a companion with you, just to talk to, really helps out. So anyway, I hope you found this entertaining, or at least informational, whatever. And just keep in mind, guys, if you're going to do a video about them guys, just think about it as it's easy to sit at home and nitpick. Those guys did a lot of hard stuff, lost a lot of weight, went through a lot of stress, and come out the better for it. I'm sure every one of them come out better for their experience. Even the guys that left after a few days, I'm sure they come out with the knowledge of some things that they didn't have when they went in. So I'm going to get off of here, and till next time, we'll see y'all later.